3, 2, 1. I want to talk about Amazon eBook ads. So a lot of people will publish their books and they will put it on Amazon through their direct publishing website, and they think that they'll just get sales naturally. Well, unless you have an email list or a following of any kind or some sort of presence online, it's going to be very difficult to cut through that. And if you want to accelerate your growth, online ads are the way to perhaps propel yourself forward. So I've been looking at this, and this is just my initial thought in terms of Amazon ads. I like that because I'm publishing my books on Amazon, I'm advertising on Amazon. It feels to me like this makes sense to be spending my money on Amazon ads versus maybe something like Facebook, where it's a separate platform. I'm not selling my books through Facebook, so it doesn't make sense for me to be advertising there. So what I'm seeing is this opportunity to explore Amazon ads, and I recently just set up 3 ad campaigns for 3 of my books to see what kind of traction I'll get. And I'll report back in maybe a week and see how things have gone. But I just want to talk about this experimentation I'm doing because it looks like it's really easy to set up. I put it all together within a few minutes. And the way to do it is when you publish your book, you have this option next to your book and it says promote and advertise. You just click that and it will take you through the menu, and you can bid on how often your ad should appear. So you could bid like $5 a day. I'm starting off with $5 a day, which is the minimum. You've got 2 different options. You have sponsored ads and then you have display ads. I'm going to go with sponsored ads. And sponsored ads essentially make your advertising right in the actual content, whereas the display ads display your products off to the side. And I don't see the entire value of having a display ad because I feel like if somebody's reading through a listing on Amazon, they're not looking on the sidebar, they're looking down the middle. So that's where I'd want my ad to appear. And I've been checking what other blogs suggest, and they also suggest that too. So I'm going to invest my money in having ads down the middle. So we're going to see how these ads work out over the next week. But it's really easy to set up. You start with that minimum bid, see what kind of traction you get. And what happens is you bid on keywords. So you want to determine where your book falls under. Maybe it's modern romance or something. So you want to have that as one of your keywords. And you want to bid on that. And you can actually do a bid amount. So you could bid like 25 cents maximum bid in order to compete and win to show up in an ad. So I don't know if 25 cents is the way to go. It seems like that's the standard. But if you want to be more competitive, or perhaps your book is fighting in a crowd, then you might want to spend a bit more. I caution against that though, because if you're spending a lot of money on your book and you're not bringing in any sales, then the cost per click is not of value. Like you're losing in terms of the amount you're paying. So I'd be cautious there. What I would do though is make sure that your listing for your product is perfectly optimized. Like we're talking your description's filled out, your author bio is filled out, your pricing is all taken care of, your reviews are in. You should have at least a handful of reviews to make it seem like you know what you're doing. This is all really critical because without all this, who's going to jump in on your product? It might be very difficult. You might find that no one's going to buy your product if it's a new listing. So you want to be filling out your profile as much as possible. I mean, my books are filled out, they're properly categorized, everything on the back end is ready to go before I spend money on ads. Because when somebody clicks my ad, I really want them to buy. Because if they're not buying, then it's a loss and I'm spending money. The most important metric that I see when setting up these ads, and this is what you should be looking at daily, at least when you're starting off here, is this cost of sale. And it's in the last column for your ads. And it's a percentage. And it's essentially saying how much are you spending and how much are you bringing in. And what you want to do is have your spend less than what you're bringing in. But I would take it a step further and say you probably want to be at 25%, because that's a good ratio to have. That means that if you spend $25, you're bringing in $100. That's what you want. So that's your cost of sale, and you want to continue to try to reduce that, because you have to remember that the sale comes in, but you only get a percentage of that. Your royalties maybe amount to, depending on what you've set up, it could be 35%. That might be your royalties. Well, with all the work that you put in, that's not really going to give you much. Like a 10% profit margin's kind of low if you're taking 35% minusing the 25% that you spent. It's really going to be tough. So I would recommend that you try to aim for that 25% cost of sale. Now, if you're making 70% royalties and you're not sharing that with anyone else, then you have a little bit more playing room. So you can maybe go up to like 40 or 50%. But remember all the different costs associated with publishing a book. And you have to figure out, what number do I need to be at to break even? And I think a goal of 25% or lower for the cost of sale is really a good goal to have. So that metric there, I would study more than anything. That's the most important metric, because if you're seeing that the percentage is way too high, like if you're spending 200% cost of sale, then that means you really need to take a look at your product. You need to take a look at your keywords, what's not converting, because you're spending a lot of money and not bringing in the returns. And you need to tweak that. So those are things that are really important. I think it's a really important thing to test online ads out and not spend too much money on it. But once you see that there's traction for one of your books, then you might want to increase the bid amount, and you might want to increase the daily budget so that you can increase your reach, you can get more impressions. Also keep in mind, if you're not selling, look at the number in the column that says impressions, because that's an indicator of how many people came across your ad, and that's exposure for your book. That's exposure for what you're creating. So keep that in mind, because that is of significant value there. You don't want to just look at the cost of the sale, but you might also want to look at impressions, because that at least gives you a comparison of whether you're doing the right thing here. So if it's showing up a lot, people are searching for what your keywords are, then you know that you've got something going here. I don't know if this is profitable for books yet. I've seen many examples of people who are making this a success, but I'm also very skeptical, because if somebody's got a social media following or they've got any kind of following, it's very easy to just say, like, this person only does ads and that's why they're successful. No, they might have many other things going for them. So I'm very cautious of that. But these are just my initial thoughts, and it would be worthwhile to invest a certain chunk and be willing to lose that amount, at least at the beginning, as you're trying to figure things out. If I was to look at it, though, you'd want to make sure that your product listing is perfectly filled out and that it's ready to go before you start spending money on ads, because it doesn't matter how much you spend on ads. If your product isn't ready, if things aren't showing up on your listing, then it could be a disaster. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to stop that for now, and then in a week we can go back and review how the ads went, and I can go deep dive into things. But until then, thanks for tuning in. Cheers.